Margo Jefferson, can you say a little bit about Michael Jackson's history, where he came from, where he grew up, and his life as a child star, how he was famous in this country for a decade before he really made it onto the world stage?
Yeah, it's a story that Michael's family certainly learned to make part of the American up by your bootstraps triumph myth, and you know, it is an amazing story. It's a working class family in Gary, Indiana, and Joe Jackson, this non-benevolent patriarch who has his own longings to be a soul star. His group fails, you know, his kids. He recognizes that his kids, all of them, you know, have a gift, have drive. He starts taking them around the country. They hit the Chitlin circuit, you know, the black, small clubs, bigger theaters. And then, you know, when you're big time, you get to the Regal in Chicago, my town, or the Apollo. He memorizes star moves, studies them, teaches them to the kids. And, you know, the under and ugly side of child star exploitation, they barely go to school. You know, they travel every weekend. He rehearses them hour after hour. They are treated very badly. You know, he tyrannizes them if they don't just hit the mark. They work their way up, small cities, towns. They hit the Apollo.
When Michael's 9.
When Michael is 9. He talks about his adoring fascination with watching, you know, people like Jackie Wilson or Etta James studying the moves, taking them in. You know, he is this genius kid whose body and voice can absorb anything. It's a combination of mimicry and inventiveness. And also, you know, work. The Jackson 5, through various channels, a number of people take credit for getting them to Motown, several people, but they get their audition. And as Mark said, you know, Berry Gordy takes them on, thinks that he can, you know, essentially put them in the little box that he's always trying to put his various stars in, and they explode, and they explode across generations. You know, I was 20 or 21, you know, and we were bopping to the Jackson 5. We people in our 20s, just like Mark's generation. So they go across generation, they go across racial boundaries. They're in black pop magazines, they're in white magazines. They hit Ed Sullivan. He is so self-possessed, self-contained. They have suddenly they're a cartoon show, they have a variety show. Suddenly they are all American boys, and they are soul boys as well. And this is phenomenal and enchanting. Pure pleasure.
Let's go to a clip off the Jackson 5, Never Can Say Goodbye. Mark Anthony Neal, you requested this song. Mark Anthony Neal, can you talk about this?
The song, it's the first single from their fourth album, Maybe Tomorrow. And I think it's really the song that lets everybody know that Michael Jackson wasn't going to be contained in the group. You know, the vocals are so mature. The phrasing is so incredible. You know, it just gives you an inkling to the sheer talent. I mean, everybody talks about the dance and the video vision, but, you know, when all was said and done, he had this tremendous voice. You know, Kenny Gamble, the great producer, has talked about, you know, he had a natural tenor, you know, where a lot of folks would have to try to sing falsetto like the Eddie Kendricks of the world. And it's just a beautiful sound. And I think, you know, if you want to see an inkling of the early genius of what Michael Jackson becomes a decade later, you hear it on that single, Never Can Say Goodbye.
Margo Jefferson, talk about Michael Jackson in the Jackson 5, and then how he soared, came out of it, and his relationship with his brothers and sisters.
Well, you know, Mark has given me the perfect lead-in in that, you know, the talent was always, his individual talent was always pushing at the boundaries of the group. And that isn't always the case. What Motown often specialized in, you know, was a lead singer with a distinctive voice, Levi Stubbs, let us say, or Eddie Kendricks, who nevertheless, you know, he'd do his solo, then meld right back into the group. You could even see that in the choreography. Michael was in front of it all the time. Many people believed because so few child stars make that leap, that, it couldn't necessarily happen, that he couldn't grow up. And, he became this, not only a delicious singer, whose dancing, as we'll see, also really develops. In that clip, he's lovely to watch, but he's still adapting to his long limbs and hasn't yet been allowed the space to dance completely apart from the crowd. So those are strange years. He becomes the absolute lead singer, rather the way Diana Ross eclipsed the Supremes. But they're still trying to work out some kind of group relationship, and he's still trying to find material and personae that can allow him to take that leap, make that break.
Speaking of breaks, we're going to take a break now, but of course we're going to do it with Michael Jackson, and we'll be back with Margo Jefferson, who's written a remarkable meditation called On Michael Jackson. As well, we're speaking to Mark Anthony Neal. He's in Georgia, professor of Black popular culture at the Department of African and African American Studies at Duke University. Stay with us.